This popcorn-style review contains scenes from another video. ViVid Strike takes place about a year after ViVid. So, we just skipped over the tournament completely. So despite all of the setup, it goes fucking nowhere. Oh, I forgot to mention something about ViVid. They switched the animation to A1, which later, to A1 Pictures from 7 Arcs, which later influenced, like, ViVid Strike's animation. And it made certain characters unrecognizable. So if past characters have appeared, it's entirely possible I just don't fucking recognize them. Which, you know, you could be like, oh, you could recognize them by the name. The fucking, there's so many characters in these goddamn franchise that that if you can actually recognize everyone by their fucking name, good on you, but I certainly can't. So when you change the appearance of a character, it really fucking throws me. But ViVid Strike, which doesn't even have like Maho Shoujo Lyrical Nanaha, it's just called ViVid Strike, which has led a lot of people who watched it to think that this is its own standalone anime and isn't connected to anything at all. And then they get like to episode 3 and it's like magic. And they're like, the fuck did that come from? And it's like, nope, trust me, it's been there the whole time. They just unfortunately did not connect this to the rest of the franchise in a coherent manner. But anyway, ViVid Strike takes place a year after ViVid and is about 2 orphan girls, one of which gets adopted by a rich family, and the other one just continues to live on the street before she eventually just goes the homeless route and gets a job working at a warehouse. The rich girl acts as the main antagonist for this because she basically gets bullied at a really young age, and she's born with like an abnormally strong body that isn't evidenced in the flashbacks, but she's born with a really abnormally strong body, guys. And so what happens is she ends up, like, because the bullies end up preventing her from saying goodbye to her adopted grandfather's, like, dying like minutes because they just like beat the shit out of her and like bully her, she ends up like fucking wrecking them. Like, they are not in a good place. Like, one of the girls looks like she has a broken neck. One of the girls, like, they mention her skull is, like, cracked. It's fucking violent, and, I mean, I'm not gonna say that the girls didn't deserve to get the shit beat out of them, because they did, but the amount of damage that Renee, I believe, is her name. Renee, does to them is a little excessive by any metric. Like, fuck, they get ruined. But they're assholes, so I guess don't have too much sympathy. It's just, and honestly, the fact that she does so much damage to them just kind of adds to her character, because her idea is that, like, this all happened because I was weak, so she blames herself. And really, she grows, like, this horrible self-hatred. And so she ends up training with this, like, older girl who's, like, a former magic boxing competitor, but had to leave because of an injury. And she trains Renee to be a championship, like, she isn't the actual champion, but she is, like, top, tier, you know, number 4 in her age group, magic boxer. And she has a falling out with Fuka, because they were friends during in their orphan days, Fuka being the other girl who lives at the warehouse. And Renee just beats the shit out of her and is like, fuck you. And then Fuka ends up getting in a whole lot of shit and a whole bunch of street fights. And this ends up getting her into an encounter with Einhart, who she just kind of lashes out from. And Einhart's like, that's a pretty good punch. All right, that's cool. And so Einhart takes her to the gym and is like, we want to hire you. Einhart's not in charge of this, but they get the combat cyborg's help. We want to hire you to work at this gym and maybe teach you to be a professional fighter. And Fuka's like, I'll work at this gym, but I don't want to be a professional fighter. And so the whole show is about them training Fuka to be a professional fighter. And there's this weird underlying debate. This is a real fucking mixed bag, because there's a lot to like about ViVid Strike and a lot to dislike about it. It's almost like 2 different people wrote it, and one of them was a good writer, and one of them was fucking horseshit. There's this underlying current between the 2 instructors, the trainer of Renee and the combat cyborg, who has a name that I will not remember, where it's about a debate about, like, talent versus talent and effort, but the other instructor completely misrepresents the cyborg's point, thinking that she's just talking all about effort, which she's not. So there's not even an actual point about this discussion. But And it's weird that they set this up. One, because their points don't contradict each other at all, because they both agree that talent is important. And it's weird that they set this up because you cannot deny that the reason the Cyborg's gym is so effective is the talent of her, proteges. Like, Vivio is the fucking daughter of a high-ranking government secret agent and an aerial combat instructor, both of whom, as I stated before, in season 1 could have killed the entire cast of this show by themselves at 9 years old easily. There's only one scene where Renee briefly demonstrates an average attack from one of them, and it's considered the biggest fucking hit in the show. It's incomparable. But she's their daughter. She is the clone of an ancient Belkin warlord, and she has the best fucking training available to her. Einhart literally inherited the memories of an ancient Belkin warlord and all of their fighting styles. One of the other girls, Mora, something like that, is trained by the Belkin Knights personally. There's only one character you could argue in ViVid and ViVid Strike that actually puts in the effort to get stronger, and it's the Golem Creation Girl, and she never wins, so it doesn't matter. I mean, she's cool, and I like her for that reason, because she actually puts in the effort and is willing to put her body on the line. But for the vast majority of the characters in the show, it's all talent, and it would have been incredibly hypocritical for the Cyborg to be like, nah, talent doesn't matter. But she doesn't even say that. She's like, talent super fucking matters, but how much effort you put in also matters, which could just as easily be applied to Renee, because every scene with Renee in it is her fighting or training, or a flashback. So there's no disagreement, and that conflict is pointless. What I will appreciate about this... Oh, and Fuka has the most talent ever. She manages to fight, Renee and, go one-on-one against the fucking, gym members, and she only gets, 4 months of training in this whole show, and she's a top-class fighter in just 4 months. They say at one point that, Renee is a once-in-a-century talent, which she's not, because... I can't believe the showrunners keep forgetting this. Nanaha exists, but even so, the fact that Fuka manages to fight with Renee within 4 months shows she's not a once-in-a-century talent. If anything, Fuka is, if we're going by that metric, but it doesn't matter. And so they all enter a tournament to fight Renee, and there's a fight that they set up between Vivio and Renee, who Vivio is known as the only person to have ever defeated her. And I was so pissed off going into it because, the structure of most narratives would imply that Vivio was going to lose. And the idea that Vivio, with all she has and all she can do, we saw her fight her fucking mom in Strikers. Granted, she's probably not as strong as she was in that fight scene in Strikers, and we know that Nanaha held back during that fight. But we know that she regularly trains with, A-class mages. Nanaha's only an A-class mage when she has the limiter on, by the way. Otherwise, she's an S-class. But we see them train with these people, and the idea that she would just lose to this fucking rich girl who's been training for a year and a half was so fucking infuriating. And it was all for nothing, because in a brilliant moment of execution, the show actually decides to keep continuity and establish characters, and it prioritizes them over a traditional plot structure, and Renee fucking loses, and it's brilliant, and it's what leads to a conflict between Fuka and Renee, where you think that during the tournament they might be setting up Fuka to fight Renee during the established tournament, but they end up fighting outside of it due to a deal they made earlier on. And this leads to a fight between Fuka and Renee, where Fuka wins, and you might say that doesn't seem fucking possible with how hard Renee trains and how long Fuka's been going. And I would almost agree with you, but it is worth noting that if you want to defend this fight, Renee was not fighting seriously at the start. She was very conflicted, and she just kind of became a punching bag in the middle, and then she actually went at Fuka for a brief period, and then at the end it was just a fucking slugfest, and Fuka just had more endurance, which it is stated that the reason Renee usually goes down is you can output her damage faster than she can endure you, so it's a valid strategy that Fuka, who regularly gets punched by much higher class opponents, could outlast her. It's not to speak to, like, Renee's actual inferiority to Fuka in combat, which is good. You know, there's a valid explanation for that. But the development between two characters that you see experienced over the fight, which can almost be used as a metaphor for their relationship, is just fucking great. And the fight itself, the last fight, is where the show really comes into its own. The biggest issue is the same issue that the entire show has, which once Fuka beats Renee in the fight, Renee's entire personality swaps back to what it was as a child. And of course it does. So that's fucking ViVid Strike. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your envoy of hope. Bye-bye.